This is a very brief introduction to InterHerd Plus and its potential as a database to support activities in Zimbabwe. To begin with, it's probably best to describe a few applications that already exist. InterHerd Plus is used on a lot of commercial farms in the UK and particularly in Colombia, actually, but also has been used on some of the big commercial farms in Zimbabwe for a number of years now, where the farmer is the main user and is looking to use the data for herd management. So all the activities that would help to manage a herd better. We also have applications which are run more by governments, which are looking at, if you like, national livestock databases that emphasize traceability, identification and traceability and registration of animals. The main one is Malta, where we all started really, and that is EU approved since 2006, and it provides full registration of multi-species animals and their movements and so on and so forth. We're also working in Kosovo with which is probably very relevant for Zimbabwe, because they start from a position with no identification of animals or herds or premises, so they had to start from scratch. And they have entered. They now have a large database of bovines across the country, and the private sector are the ones who are doing a lot of the data entry of births and vaccinations and so on, and services and so on and so forth. So they are entering data from the field into the government database. Rwanda is another nice example, a recent one where we have a lot of animals, but from a huge number of farms as well. So it's over 1 million animals, but on about 500,000 farms. So every farmer only has 1 or 2 animals, and of course they don't need a computer. But the fact that we can aggregate animals and herds up into into villages or regions or districts or even countries allows us to make sense of the data that we're recording there. We also use the system is used extensively for livestock extension in the UK. Vets use it to monitor the performance of their clients, so do nutritionists, and there are extension projects around the world that are basically using it to help provide action lists and so on for their extension workers, so they know what to do in particular farms. So if we were setting up InterHerd Plus, the point I'm trying to make here is that the functionality that exists in all those different applications is available. There will be one core livestock database which will be based on a server or on the cloud, and that will potentially have all that functionality. Of course, we don't want all that functionality at any one time, and a lot of it will remain hidden and be brought out as required or adapted as required. So it's the flexibility that I think is really important. Field users will interact with that core database via a web application, while the administrators and researchers can access the core database using all the functionality that exists with InterHerd and InterTrace Plus. So they can do the detailed analysis that we want to do. If we look at, to give you an idea of the sort of thing we're talking about here, I've got a screen from the web application. This user has permission to view 191 herds. So that is really key. Just because you've got the database, you've got to control who can see what. This user can see 191 farms, and for each farm, we have a code for the farm, we have the name of the farmer, the code of the farm is unique, and we have a location. So in Rwanda, we're going down to the village level. We know every village, district, and so on and so forth. So we know exactly where any animal is located and who is in charge of that animal for all the animals that are in the database. You can have the longitude and latitude if you want, that's not compulsory. But you can see here we know the number of animals that are registered against the individual farmers at the current time. So that's what the database thinks is available in that farm. The user can select amongst the herds that they're allowed to look at. They can select by code, name, or location, or whatever. This one we're selecting by location. and it finds 10 herds that have the location that they've specified. So essentially what we're doing here is developing we're aggregating the herds up into a village herd. So, and when we do that, if we go and have the herd structure, I can see that those 10 selected animals, herds rather, we've got 11 cows, 4 heifers and 3 males. So that's what we're going to use as the herd unit, if you like. I also know the fertility. 11 of those have been currently served, but not yet confirmed pregnant or not. And the heifers, all 4 of those are not, we don't even have any service data on those yet. As well as the number of animals, we also have events that are due. So we've got 11 animals that should have had a PD by now, and some other events due as well. So to see what those are, there's the, obviously if you've got the GPS, we can do all the mapping and so on and so forth. But when we have located our identified our 10 herds that we're going to work with, we can generate a list, and then that gives us details of the animals that we expect to see when we visit a farm. So you've got the names of the farms, the herds here. So when I go to this first farm, I expect to find 1 animal. It should be that's the ear tag of that animal. It's female, 7 years old, in her 2nd lactation. And you can see that there is also, whereas these other farms have got different numbers of animals and so on. As well as the details of the animal, we have events. And this is the way the program operates. We have events that are overdue in this case. These animals should have been pregnancy diagnosed, a year ago now. So, this is very old data. Please, this is to be kept in confidence as well. This is old data, but this animal was due, as far as we know, she's due to be pregnancy diagnosed. In fact, that data hasn't been entered is by the by. But we have events. So what do we mean by events? Sorry, I've gone and pressed the whole thing again. If I go to an animal's record, so here I've picked one of the animals here. I've selected it from the cows that are available. I'm looking at a 2nd lactation cow, and in her record at the bottom there, you can see all the events that have happened in that 2nd lactation. So she's had a calving, she's had a weighing, she's had a body condition score, a genomic test, and she's had a service, and the date of the service tells me that was 100 days after the calving. The next event doesn't have a tick. So this is, if you like, a scheduled event, something that we anticipate is due. And this is what's being picked up by that list to say, actually, this animal should have had a pregnancy diagnosis back in October last year. That was due, and it obviously hasn't happened, but it still means that it was due. So that was triggered by the service event. So the service event happened 100 days after calving. The pregnancy diagnosis was scheduled on day 190, so 90 days later. So this is key, because in some systems you'd want that 42 days later or 30 days later, or maybe you wouldn't want a PD at all. So this is how we have to work with the events to tailor them to the requirements of the country we're working in. So the way the service is defined in this example, we have a service event, and it has follow-up events. And you can see here that we have set the follow-up event for the PD at 90 days. If I wanted it to work at 30 days, I would just change that to 30. And then from then on, every time we have a service event, we would schedule the pregnancy diagnosis event for 30 days later. So that's very simple and can be done very quickly. If you want to add new events, so for example, vaccination for ECF, I could enter that as a new event, but I would have to then give it if I wanted to follow up. In this instance, I'm saying 6 months' time, we will follow up the one East Coast fever event with another East Coast vaccination event, I beg your pardon. So that's how you define an event. You can edit them, you can delete them, you can add them, and so on and so forth. And then when we go to an animal's record, all I have to do is go to the events on that animal, enter the date the event happened, pick the event that is from the list of available events that this person is allowed to record. So I've included vaccinations for ECF. And I can also record the operator, the person who actually did the vaccination. So there we have what we require. Once I've entered that, I press save, and then that is added into the animal's record. So you can see the vaccination that's happened on the 14th of September day 699, and then 6 months later, we've got a scheduled event. So that is responding to the follow-up of 6 months. So by getting the right mix of events, the right behaviour of those events, you can make this very seamless and very stress-free for the people in the field. So events and variables, primarily we record events against animals, so all the services, the PDs, the heats, whatever level of detail that you want, you can enter. If you enter it, it will be recorded. We also can enter events at the against a farm. So, for instance, you could record, well, we visited this farm on the 1st of January, and then you can schedule the next visit for 6 months' time, or so on and so forth, and record the details of what you found, and so on and so forth. So, this event structure can work at the animal level and at the farm level. We also have variables, which I won't go into in great detail, but these are things that don't change. So if you, for instance, an animal, you might have defining features or registration numbers for something. Against a farm, you could have variables such as what's the topography of the area or the system they're following, and so on and so forth. Again, this all builds up the data that goes into that core database. So as far as analysing the database is concerned, the field users are seeing the data they need, entering the data they need, that you want them to enter, and they're interacting with the core database. When we come to wanting to analyse that database, then that's, you will have administrators and researchers who have access to the core database. And they can analyse the data in that database using the full functionality of InterHerd and InterTrace, so that, for example, to study, what's the fertility in this area, what's the fertility over the country, over the district, over the village, or whatever it is, and then also we can help it to users to administer vaccination programs. Which animals require vaccination, where are they, who owns them, and so on and so forth. Who hasn't? Which farms have been missed? And so on and so forth. So you can identify where things are being recorded. This would all be done at the central level using InterTrace, so it would not be done on the mobile, but that's all available. And we do that sort of thing in the UK. Here you've got just very briefly, a summary of the fertility of a particular farm. And on the right-hand side, the current parameters there are the performance over the last year. The target values on the right-hand side have been derived from analysing 500 UK dairy herds, so using InterHerd Plus again. So we can then start to say, well, what's this farm good at? What's this farm not good at? Which animals are doing well, which animals are not doing well, and so on and so forth. And if you want to do a research project, for example, on mastitis, if the field have been entering mastitis events, I can then identify which events have been recorded, when, how many they are, which animals. I can have an incidence rate, so on and so forth. So this is the high-level analysis, but before we can do any of that, we need that core data. So hopefully that gives you a good summary of what we do with InterHerd Plus and how it might be applicable to your requirements.